everyone, welcome back to a new YouTube video. In this video I speak to 5 experts, all in their relative fields, some of them including photography, birding, ecology, and all 3 combined. It was an amazing and very humbling experience to speak to these people I met over Instagram. Too often we just look at the number of likes we see or someone's commented on our post and we just take that number as a statistic, but we forget there's actually people behind them. And so I really love seeing these people come to life via Zoom. This video is going to be the first of a 5-part series, so if you like what you see here, please consider subscribing so you don't miss the rest. I'd also love if you left a comment down below telling me what I could improve on or what I did well for future videos. Everyone who I talked to throughout this interview, I'll put their social media links in the description below. So I have my kombucha at the ready, let's get into it. First question, the classic question, how did you get started in wildlife and photography?
It actually came pretty late in life. And they sort of happened at the same time. So my wife actually bought a Canon 40D, which is an old crop body, which I still have. She bought that to take photos of jewelry. And we bought a 70-200 lens for our pets and family. Happened to be going walking one day. I went for a walk with the 40D and the 70-200, and a magpie landed on a fence post. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So I put the camera up, probably in full auto mode, and just took a couple of shots of this magpie, looked on the back of the screen, and thought, oh, that's pretty cool. And then as I was continuing walking, a little willy wagtail landed on a fence and was dancing, and I thought, oh, I'll take a photo of that as well. And took a photo of that. And then I started noticing birds that I didn't actually recognize. So I wasn't a birder beforehand. So I was seeing these birds that I didn't know what they were. So I'd take a photo and I wanted to identify them. So I bought a bird book, and then it kind of snowballed. I started taking photos of birds I didn't recognize, trying to find out what they were in the book. And that was fine. And then I happened to go online and started looking at photos of other people that had taken of birds. And I wondered why my photos were so bad. Mine were terrible. And, I was looking at Yarns and others and thinking, why are their images so good and mine are really bad? So I started researching and reading and trying to figure out how other people were getting these really nice shots. And I actually found a forum, I don't know if you've been on it, called Feathers and Photos, which at the time, so I think this was 2011, I joined this forum, and there were all the top photographers were on this forum, and they were posting their shots and they were offering really good critiques. Cool. Constructive feedback. So I started putting up a few of my shots on there and getting some really good feedback, and that helped me start to learn what I needed to do. And then I actually reached out to a few photographers from that forum that happened to be in my area. So Matt Jones, Hein de Kock, and there were a few others from further north, Gerard Satherley, David Stowe, all these guys that I admired, and I reached out and they were kind enough to let me go and have a session with them and join them. And it kind of grew from there. It became an addiction. You've probably got the same addiction. And, I just, every spare moment I had, I was out. I was lucky to live on the coast by a lake and a lot of seabirds, shorebirds and all these things. And I just spent hours laying in the mud and crawling around photographing these birds. And so I've been doing that for 9 years now.
Well, I think I was always interested in birds, like even from the youngest sort of age. My parents were always telling me that they had to watch birds with me for hours, really, really little. And so I guess it was always birds for me. And then after a while, I was just kind of getting more and more into photography as well. And then at some point, the two kind of merged together. And I just really enjoyed being able to then kind of capture what I was seeing in the field and kind of keeping those moments. And I guess I like collecting things. So I do like to go out there and just get all the different kind of bird species and get nice photos of them.
So it was kind of 2 passions kind of met.
Yeah, exactly. That's really how it happened. It was birds first and then photography. And then I started out with just like a little point and shoot camera, just going to the zoo, because with these little cameras, I couldn't really just take photos of the birds that I really wanted to take photos of. So I just went to places that I could get close enough to the birds. And so I did that for a while. And then eventually I was just wanting to do more because it was nice to take photos in zoos, but it just wasn't the same. And I wanted to be able to go out and just take pictures of the birds that I would see every day. And then I bought my first camera, which was like a Canon 20D, I think. That's many, many years ago now. And then I got a 100 to 400 millimeter zoom lens as well. And that's how it kind of started. And that's how I got my first sort of still bad, but better pictures.
Yeah, well, I started actually more with landscape and then moving into people and weddings. It was quite a while before I really got into wildlife and particularly birds. It's probably been shooting for a fair while before I got into that. I've always loved nature and wildlife and things, but yeah, definitely it was more landscape that was my thing starting out. But then probably in about in the late 90s, went to Kakadu and saw all these awesome birds and, you know, thought, yeah, I've got to start getting into bird watching. And then it was probably still a few years before I actually started getting, you know, back in the film days, it was expensive and, you know, big long lenses were really expensive. So yeah, it took a little while to sort of put the two together, I think. But yeah, ever since the sort of early 2000s, it's been, yeah, pretty awesome getting into birds.
That's not as long as I thought. Like I would have, I don't know, I just assumed you'd been in it since you were young or younger.
Yeah. Thanks,
Sorry.
That's all right. No, it's yeah, like I said, I'm always interested in wildlife and nature and stuff growing up, but like I said, you know, back in film days, it was just really expensive, and you know, long lenses were hard to come by. My long lens was a secondhand 300mm f4, and that was great. But again, you know, just a whole other world shooting, shooting birds compared to, you know, shooting people and landscapes.
Okay, so my parents were both botanists, so I grew up around it all. So I've always been into ecology, and I knew for as long as I can remember, I wanted to be an ecologist. But photography, I'm still fairly new to. It's only in the last couple of years that I've really gotten into it. Probably when I've finally started working and making some money.
Fair enough.
So like we live on a bush block of 39 acres, and I've always sort of found it fascinating. Like I've been out in the bush and just been looking at stuff, finding stuff. And then I got like some crappy digital camera when I was like 6, and I was like, oh, I can take photos now. And so sort of worked my way up, got better and better cameras. And then at the end of it, I sort of just became more passionate about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you sharing pictures like on the chat, like of your old like point and shoots and stuff. They were pretty good for what the camera
They were good back in the day.
Yeah.
At least I thought they were.
Where can people find you?
I've got a very unique name. So if you just search Dwade, so D-U-A-D-E on YouTube or Google, my website will come up, which is just dwadepayton.com. And obviously my YouTube channel, just search for Dwade Payton.
Instagram and YouTube, just under my name, Jan Wegener. On Instagram, you have the underscores, but I'm sure you will also link it down there in the description.